Professional athlete Barney Koneferenisi has never let his disability get in the way of pursuing his dreams. Using sheer grit and determination, he has overcome incredible obstacles to represent New Zealand on the international wheelchair rugby stage. And now, Barney's ready to help other people with disabilities get mobile.
My professional career as a sports person started off at the age of 14 when I first got introduced to wheelchair rugby. I started playing with a bunch of quadriplegics and paraplegics and built my way up to the Auckland team. When I turned 15, I had my first international tournament in Australia, which was a development squad going to test the waters, see how it was. And then just a few months later, I didn't take much from it. I thought, oh, this is just going to be a nice little fun tournament. A few months later, I then got selected to go to Germany. So me being the typical 15-year-old, I didn't know where Germany was. I literally thought Germany was right next to Australia. So we landed in Australia, and they were like, oh, sweet, we're here. Oh, no, this is just a stopover. And I was like, oh, okay. Then we went from Australia to China. Oh, we're here yet? No, this is the second stopover. Oh, God. And then eventually we got to Germany, and then it felt like 2 days. We got there, the entire experience was crazy. We got greeted by beautiful flight attendants, beautiful people in Germany. But the most memorizing experience was, just being a young kid and being able to leave the country and do this, do that. A year after that, I got selected to go to Korea for the Oceania. And then all these other opportunities opened up for travel. I'm 27 now, and I think I've been to at least 32 countries ever since starting when I was 14. So I've been blessed, to say the least, to travel the world. So the sport I play is wheelchair rugby. It is made up of a bunch of quadriplegics, paraplegics, just people with different disabilities. So we have a point classification that goes from 0.5 to 3.5. So 0.5 are those that have high accidents and have lower function, whereas a 3.5 is the person with all the function in the game and can they do all the ball carrying, they run the game, they do this, do that. Luckily, I'm in the 3.5 classification, so that's where my dominant side comes from. So when somebody says, okay, this is happening, like, no, this is happening because I'm running the ball, this is exactly what's going to go down. There's a lot of controversy on the court that happens most of the time, but while they're arguing, I'm already pushing down the court so that nothing passes. After playing the game, you don't feel disabled. It brings up the adrenaline, all that stored in testosterone that you never got out because of certain things that you can't do outside. And then when you get on the court, your disability doesn't matter.
Born into a family with big dreams of Barney becoming an All Black, everything changed for him at the age of just 4 months.
So how I became my fabulous self? Well, I contracted meningitis at the age of 4 months, which resulted in me getting parts of my right fingers amputated and parts of my left hand cut off. I did have skeleton-like legs that I did have carry on until the age of 10. And then the doctors were like, well, there's no blood flow going through there. So if we don't do something now, your son might become paralyzed because obviously it's going to become dead weight. So the thing that annoyed my family the most was the fact that I had to go through 7 to 8 surgeries every year. And then for them to later on down the line saying that none of the surgeries worked, we have to amputate your son's leg. My dad looked at them and he pretty much said it to me. He's like, he feels like I was a science experiment. And for them to come up to me after 12 years of surgery, maybe close to 60, 70 surgeries, for them to say that there's nothing else we can do, the best thing for your son is for us to operate and amputate his legs. When I heard that as well, I was like, well, what kind of bullshit is this? You put me through how many years of pain for you just to turn around and say, I'm sorry, but there's nothing else we can do. And when they told me that I was going to lose my legs, I was like, well, what can I do now? So it wasn't the best, but I did spend at least 3-4 months depressed in hospital, because my skin was super sensitive, it was ripping. So they had to get donated artificial skin or donated skin and staple the skin together to ensure it doesn't keep ripping. Like the staple marks are still there. So staple marks all up here. So I had at least maybe 10, 15 staples in the leg. And I remember it was on my birthday. This was before I had my leg amputated. One of the most painful things was, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a circle metallic contraption with bolts. So what they did, my bone was crooked, and their idea was if we screw these bolts inside his leg, we can try and straighten his bones. Didn't. And like just thinking back at that and then thinking 3 years later saying none of that worked, we have to amputate your leg, that's super frustrating. But then later on down the line, I've learned to accept it. I looked at the positive side, like 1, I would have been paralyzed. At least I can walk. 2, at least I'm agile. At least I can move around. I'm a lot better off than most people I've met. And 3, I'm alive. If I didn't cut these legs off, a bug would have grew on my spine, would have made me less mobile, would have just killed me today. So the fact that I'm actually here, regardless of having no legs, no arm, regardless of not being able to do many things, the fact that I actually got a second chance in life and got to breathe the air that most people can't breathe, this is a massive blessing for me. So there are a lot of barriers to living life as a person with a disability. Getting out's not the best for most of us. If we do get out, we do have to dodge scooters. So the biggest headache that for people that are either visually impaired or are in wheelchairs, that you know those lime scooters that are always that people always ride, and then when you run out of time, it just stops, and then you have to get off and walk the rest. It's not the best when we're trying to push on the footpath and the things are literally so wide and so heavy that most of us can't lift them up. So we end up having to go off the curb and look both ways and then sprint to the other side where the footpath is and sprint to the side that's open. And then once we do get to our destination, we then have to wait for the train, which sometimes never runs. And then if the trains aren't running, we have to take the bus, which isn't the best, because we always fall into instances where the bus driver sees the wheelchair or the person with the service animal or just anyone with a disability in general, and they're like, no, this is going to be a lot of work. So 9 out of 10 times every week, a person in a wheelchair or a person that's visually impaired always gets turned down by these bus services. So our next option are taxis. The trouble with taxis is that the big vans are all booked out for school runs early in the morning. So they all got contracts with Ministry of Education. So from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., they're all unavailable. For those guys that rely on these vehicles to get to their meetings or get to work or just get to important life events, most of them miss out on those certain things because they can't get that vehicle. When we call for a taxi, we always get rejected by that company because the driver, like I said, is just like the bus. The driver doesn't want to get out of their taxi. They don't want the wheelchair in their boot, or they say, we don't want dogs in our car. We order companies like Uber, Ola, and Didi, and with these companies being, their drivers being independent contractors instead of employees, they do the same things as these taxi companies do, so they don't pick us up and take us. And they say, when we take them to court, they said the driver has every right to reject us because they are independent contractors, it's their cars, their rules. So we have the other issue of females being sexually assaulted on different transport platforms. So we had a lot of women with disabilities do the survey and said that they've been taken advantage of. I want to take a longer route to raise the meter, knowing that that individual has a total mobility concession card that would chop the fare in half. So a normal fare might cost $35 to $40. If they know you have a mobility card, that fare might be $200. Because they know that you have the card, so they say if it's $200, it'll be $100. Like from, an example was 2 months ago, I went to see a gentleman that's helping me with this business as well. From my house to the CBD, Auckland City, it cost me $240 one way. Instead of spending months to years on these cases, let's put all our energy into this business, which is the rideshare that will be catering to the disabled women, people with pets, the rainbow community, everyone.
And now Barney's love of cars and getting mobile is driving him to help others with disabilities get access to transportation catering to their unique needs, enabling them to feel safe and supported while providing the vital services that people with disabilities need to stay active and integrated into society.
I'm such a motorhead. I absolutely love my vehicles. Growing up, I always, the typical kid that always want to jump in the front seat when their dad goes shopping. Or literally just goes up to the grocery store when my dad goes off to work, and then I wait for him to finish because it's a short shift. I always jump in the driver's seat, pretend that I'm driving, like doing the typical changing the gears and trying to reach the foot pedal with my imaginary legs. I've always loved the sound of engines. It turns me on. So our biggest mission is to obviously start off by purchasing a wheelchair accessible van, because that's where the lack of supply is right now. Because like I said, all these vans that these guys with larger wheelchairs rely on are booked up school runs. So if we can purchase one van and then start up with that, that'll make, although the service will be slow, we're slowly fixing the issue. We will be adding a lot of different drivers that will cater to different parts of the community, like people with disabilities. So we'll be having drivers that are trained knowing how to dismantle chairs. The other thing we are doing is for the female section, we are hoping to add a large fleet of women drivers. So when the female section is selected on the app, every single male driver on our platform will get filtered out, and the nearest female driver will get the job. That's just to help them feel safer. I might as well put all the energy into this Give a Little. So the Give a Little page will cover things from the development of the app to the purchase of a fully accessible wheelchair-friendly van. The van with the hoist, because those are very expensive to come by. So we're going to have features like softwares that break down speech impediments, because there are people that don't have full use of their arms, like people with cerebral palsy, don't have full use of their arms and cannot speak properly due to the dislocation of their muscle. In your entire lifetime, we will always overcome challenge. We will always come into challenges. There's that saying, do not let your current story be your final chapter. There's always a bright light. There's always something ahead of you, but you just need to work for it. Don't listen to the white noise. There will always be people on the outside saying you can't do this, you can't do that. Even with me, with my disability, people said I wouldn't be able to feed myself, I wouldn't be able to push, I wouldn't be able to think for myself. I would need 24-hour care. All of that's proven wrong because I blocked them out. So don't let anybody dictate your future. You're the one with the key, you're the one in control.
To support Barney and his attempts to help people with disabilities get mobile, head to his Give a Little page.